This program then, working with RSA, Regional Support Associates, blended together, and this is the results that we got, okay?
Marcus is one of my favorite subjects from the day he was born. He's always been really different. As a baby, he met his milestones really early, and then he just got to a point where he just kind of stopped. Around 2 years old, he didn't seem to progress any further, and that was when we initially got the autism diagnosis, and he didn't get the treatments that he needed, and we kind of had to fight for it, and seeing different doctors, and the study of autism was still in its infancy, and nobody knew anything.
He was taken into care when he was either 7 or 8, and he went to Toronto. At Toronto, he had to move to a new facility because he got lead poisoning, and the environment wasn't safe for him anymore. So then they moved him into a different facility, and he lived there until he was about 21, which is typically when someone with a developmental disability kind of ages out of the child system.
When that happened, it went so sideways for Marcus. He acted out, and he ended up breaking windows in that house, and the police were called, and the police came, and they handcuffed him.
Marcus was living in a safe space through Community Living Essex, and no one really wanted to provide him any support. He was a challenge out there that a number of agencies shied away from because they were intimidated, they were scared, or they didn't think they had the capacity.
And the care facility that he was in, it was nice. They did a lot of good work for him, but it wasn't until he got here in Stratford before things really started to take off.
Marcus came to us in January of 2016. At that time, Marcus was showing some very aggressive behavior, self-harm, biting, hitting himself.
When he first moved in, it was very common for Marcus to engage in a very severe self-injurious episode at least once a day. Typically, they would last for over an hour, and he would bite his hands, he would bite his wrists and his upper arms, often to the point that he would puncture his skin and he would be bleeding. He also used to hit his head very, very hard. We would do our best to support him through the intercom during those moments, because if we would engage, he would aggress towards us, and he would hit very, very, very hard, like to the point that if within 5 seconds he had caused staff to have concussions before.
Marcus really didn't engage at the beginning. He stayed in his bed all the time, and he would come out to eat, but if we asked him to do an activity, he would just start biting or dropping to the floor.
He has very, very limited communication at that time. So even to get him to say, I'm in pain, was almost impossible.
We knew things were not right, and we wanted to find answers. And our manager, Sarah Ropp, went to Niagara Falls and heard Peter Marks speak. She came back and she was so excited. She said he was talking about Marcus.
As soon as I heard Peter talk, a light bulb went off. I thought, this is Marcus. This is exactly what we need for Marcus right now.
So Danny and I went and heard Peter speak, and again, there were flags going off, and we were looking at each other and we were going, we can help Marcus. We can help him, because these are the things that are probably upsetting him and bothering him.
When I heard Peter speak about the biomedical and about the gut and how important it was to get that stuff tested and to really dig deep into the medical side, I thought, this is an opportunity for Marcus right here to really understand who he is and what's going on within him that we can't see. We can't physically see with our eyes what's happening. And because he's nonverbal, he can't tell us.
And then Peter came along into Marcus's life, and what a completely different direction Marcus is in. I can't begin to describe all the subtle differences with Marcus and what this program and treatment have done for him. He's a completely different person. It's like his personality has emerged outside of the autism.
When Marcus was selected to be part of the government program, the pilot project, we were all very excited. And we all went through, the S2s, the main staff, went through a 4-week or 6-week long course, something like that, where each training we would learn about a new hierarchy of needs.
We started off by doing a casein and gluten-free diet, and Marcus responded well. He started losing weight, His mood started to change slightly.
Another thing that was instrumental with the gut was that Marcus had an overgrowth of bacteria in his gut. That was one of the biggest things that I found, at least showing in the data, that really worked for Marcus, was when we started giving him these drops and the antifungal medications and things like that, his behaviors plummeted. We worked with a naturopathic doctor, and we also worked with Marcus's general practitioner, who is an amazing man. So when we found that he had this overgrowth, the doctor actually prescribed antifungal medications, because the naturopathic doctor said that the stuff that she could prescribe wouldn't be strong enough to kill it. And then once the majority of the overgrowth was dealt with, then we could deal with the naturopath on more of a preventative basis. It worked really well because we had both perspectives at once.
The most important thing is the relationship focused around Marcus and around who Marcus was and that understanding, as opposed to just a quick cure of give him 2 of these a day and everything should be all right. It started to evolve into, this is what Marcus needs in his life, and this is how he's responding to things or what's driving certain things, and we can change that through our approach.
We did an OT assessment, which helped us learn Marcus wasn't breathing deeply, which kept him in fight and flight mood all the time. We're learning to help him with the suck and blow, the 5-finger breathing, to get a deep breath. So that is increasing his lung capacity and opening up that airflow and the ability to breathe deeper.
Peter talks a lot about what comes out of the outlets and the dirty electricity in the air, and how someone particularly with autism can hear things that you and I could never imagine. And someone who's already experiencing a high level of anxiety, that just shoots them to a higher level.
After he demonstrated that, he talked about energy filters, and we went back and talked about it a little bit at our management team and said, well, it's worth a shot. We ended up installing 3 main filters, which helps eliminate quite a bit of the dirty energy throughout the whole home. And it was night and day. The next day I was getting reports from our frontline direct professionals saying, you wouldn't believe the change. It was astounding to see this little thing of just some dirty energy turn into a huge impact on the quality of life for people.
Another thing suggested was exercise, at least 20 minutes of cardio every day. Peter highly recommended getting a trampoline for Marcus, and we did. So that's very helpful for him, and it also helps balance brain regulation as well as sensory regulation.
I think the trampoline was pretty major. He's gone through 2. He wore his first one out and we bought him a second one recently. So we put music on and, we'd dance in front of him while he jumped, and he'd laugh and he'd snap his hands and things like that. And these are things that we really haven't seen from him. We also do bilateral stimulation with Marcus. And by doing it regularly, we do it for 4 minutes every day, it's teaching the brain to kind of talk to each other. But on top of that, it really acts as a good moment for us to connect.
Just the things that he's doing now. I mean, the activities that he does when he does his own laundry, or he's sweeping the floor, or he never did that. 2 years ago, he didn't do that at all. But now it seems like he wants to do these things. He wants to be a part of that. He's more involved.
Out of the 5 meds that he was on for sedative purposes, or that had a mood stabilizer purpose to it, he's currently now just on 1. So he takes risperidone, 1.5 milligrams, and that's it. He goes out at least once a day, usually twice a day, for over an hour. He does all of his own chores in his room. He does all of his own cleaning. He cooks now. He runs a lot of the errands for the house. He goes grocery shopping, and he now has his own paper route.
To see how the people here who have been trained by Peter, and the way that they work with Marcus, and the way he is now, he has a voice. He communicates better. He can make his needs known, and it's not just using a pick board. It's Marcus is using words where he never used words ever. I've never felt as comfortable with other staff members as I do here, because I know they genuinely care about Marcus.
I've worked with Community Living Stratford for about 14 years, and I supervise the most resilient team I think I have. And Peter's really helped them through his training to do a lot of catching in the moment. It's incredibly hard when you're supporting someone who's yelling verbal insults at you, who's attempting to hit you, to keep that calm. But he's taught them how in the moment you never take that personal. It's whatever's happening with that person, they still need the same care and compassion as they did when you were out having a great time. So the team has really come together. They've learned how to do that, and they do it incredibly every day. One of the things I respect most about Peter is he does talk about it all working together, and that each system has to be in unison as they walk this road with somebody. So it's not about just a behavior support plan, and it's not about just the biomedical piece, but both have to go hand in hand in order to best support the person. And that's really the approach we've taken. We put as much validity into the CCS as we do to the behavior support plan. And the team knows that, and that's the way they support every day.
At the start, it was about just how to keep everyone safe and get through a day. Well, then when we started working with conscious care and support, it dramatically changed. It was about really recognizing who Marcus is, what he wants to do. It was recognizing that Marcus isn't a dangerous person. He isn't someone who spontaneously could just, hurt staff at a drop of a hat. Marcus was someone who had lots of talents, had lots of skills, had lots of interests, but Marcus had a lot of things that he couldn't communicate to us. With conscious care and support and with regional support associates working together, having two like-minded bodies that are looking to how you support staff to provide a better quality of support, really raised the bar for us.
Marcus is starting to develop a lot of meaningful roles and relationships in the community. He has a paper route right now, and there's a gentleman there who tips him every week, and there's a few other people who come out and they shake his hand and they give him a high five, so he's getting known kind of around the community. He's also part of a bowling league right now, so there's about 6 other individuals who play. He's building lots of friends through there, and we actually had them come over for Marcus's first real birthday party here.
We would see him at our administration office. Lots of people around, lots of interactions, lots of spontaneity, all things we were told that Marcus could never be involved in, and there again, he was involved in it. He was at the Halloween dance. 3 years ago, people would say, you can't take him there. He's going to hurt someone. Something's going to happen. Never did. He enjoyed it. You could see pride and joy in Marcus doing that.
He's developing a lot of friends and is getting known to be a really helpful and wonderful person to be around.
People we support can't only have staff in their life. That's not a meaningful life for them. So to be able to help him to get out and start to develop social skills and these relationships has just created such meaning in his life.
After working in this sector for close to 30 years, this blows away nonviolent crisis intervention. Why just figure out a way to control something when you can introduce techniques, training, skills, and talents into staff that can help change lives on a permanent basis? And that's the power of conscious care and support. When we talk about the return on investment, this is going to not only keep staff safe, it's not only going to provide great quality support, but it's going to open those opportunities for people because they're going to have an approach that supports long-term growth as opposed to just handling the situation in the moment and then moving on to the next moment.
Without the knowledge and the complete package, I really think that was so beneficial to Marcus as well as the team. We learned so much about ourselves, and we learned how to help him feel better, live better, and have a great life.
As his mother, I can't even describe the guilt that I felt of having to give him up. I can sleep at night now knowing that Marcus is here and the staff care about him, and all these therapies and that have worked. Everything that Peter said could or would happen has happened with my son. Everything that he came out with, it's happening.
Marcus now has a great Facebook page. You can dial into it anytime. I was there a couple of weeks ago and he was strumming his guitar for me. When we first met Marcus, he had 4 male supporters. just under $1 million a year. This man had spent far too much time in 5-point restraints in psychiatric ward. He's now 1-to-1. In some outings, it'll be 1-to-2. He was over at the casino this summer with just a single female supporter, and they just had a great time and whatnot. This was now 5 years ago. And it holds when the staff hold. This is where you're so key. It's not just a matter of getting some this and that. It's like it goes together with everyone involved. And so long as the staff stay with it, then you know that we're in good shape. So I'd just like to go now just a tad deeper, but I want to make this statement and make it pretty clear, and we can back it up with everything we're doing here. 50% of youth and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities have symptoms of SIBS, anger, etc. This is mainly from these different areas, the GI inflammation and medical issues. And believe it or not, in the next hour, we're going to show you the specifics we can do on these. And these specifics are not costing anything, next to nothing when we go into this process. We've dropped his support to now about $150,000 a year, right? So, but it must be stated clearly here that these conditions cannot be successfully treated with mainly only psychotropic meds and intrusive measures behavior support plans, unresearched use of antipsychotics, which I'll share with you in a second what that is. So I'd just like to go now through some of these specifics, and this is a really complete slide. We're going to show you some of the problems and what to do about them, and then after break, take it into a deeper level. But just to talk about these for a second. So impacted bowel and or chronic constipation. We know, everyone knows, you've been constipated for a year. You could well start to develop impacted bowel. Now, it takes a Cube X-ray to really confirm that, but science is pretty clear that even if you are, quote, taking care of the symptoms with Restoralax or whatever, you've still got serious problems with that constipation. And it builds almost like a cement in the upper bowel. Welcome to the world of impacted bowel. If we knew how many people are struggling with their behaviors just because of carrying a load of cement in their upper gut, you get really motivated to change that. Next, neurotransmitters, high glutamate. So glutamate, it's an excitatory neurotransmitter. And every time you've lost your car keys and are late for a meeting, you get kind of, where the heck are my car keys? Where did my partner leave them? Damn, you know, and you've been just brought by nature into a rush of glutamate has been formed in your brain. Now, all of you have got highly functioning glial cells. Those glial cells go in and suck up that excess glutamate. So when you get in your car and drive up the driveway, you're chill, you're cool, right? Not so with people who we support. The percentages vary depending on the studies, but you can take around a third or more of people who we support do not have well-functioning glial cells. Therefore, when they get jacked up with glutamate, it stays there sometimes for 1 to 2 hours. And it definitely causes agitations, angers, and aggressions. Another sad point to add to this reality is each time we buy a fast food meal for the person we're supporting, we're likely putting glutamate into their system. You all have heard of MSG. The G is for glutamate. MSG right now has over 50 names. If you're looking something in a grocery store to buy, if it's got more than 5 ingredients, don't buy it. It's going to have glutamate. So we buy these fast foods, and we have, I don't know how many dozens of supporters that come in and said, you wouldn't believe this guy. I buy him what he wants, we go to Horton's just what he wanted to, and an hour later, he's hitting me. Well, what do you think of that? And I say, well, let's talk later. Because that hitting often comes from that instant being glutamate in the system, right? Next, gluten intolerances. Many, many more people are gluten intolerant in our sector than we have any belief. There's enough gluten intolerance for people we're supporting that this should be a standard test. Every GP that picks up the case, but it's not. We may test for celiac down the road when we see some obvious symptoms, but we got a lot of work. Gluten. Think of the word glue. What happens is that in our gut, we don't have gluten intolerances. We eat food with gluten, and our gut is still able to break up this food. So the villi, these little octopus arms, can suck up the nutrients and put it into our system. That's us who do not have any problems with gluten. But for those who have gluten intolerance, not to mention celiac, what happens is when that food goes into the gut, it doesn't get broken up by the acids in the microbiome. It stays in chunks. Then the villi try to come in and suck this up, right? And they can't do it. So the villi become inflamed. And even after they stop eating gluten-rich foods, the villi can't even pick up good nutrients now. So now we start to break down the vitamin, minerals, and oxalates and antioxidants and all those things that we need to have someone stabilized emotionally and physically, right? So this, just remember that little bit that I said, just those three there could change lives of the people who you're talking about. Next, look at brain inflammation caused by low glutathione. 2015, I think. They took, and I don't know how many were in the study, I'm going to say 200, randomly selected, all the good stuff for good science. 50%, they all had similar levels of behavior, okay? Divided the group randomly into the control group and into the study group. And here's what happened. Kept them more or less the same diets and daily exercises. They covered as many variables as possible. But here's the result of that research. There's a supplement on the market called NAC. And NAC is the way to get the body to produce an antioxidant, okay, called glutathione. And glutathione is the mother of all antioxidants. Now, just the 30-second version, antioxidants, when they looked at people being on NAC, which brought up levels of glutathione where it needed to be, when they looked at the study, after the study group were on NAC for a total of 2 months, the behaviors in the study group reduced by 72%. In the PowerPoint, you can see references for all this stuff, okay? I wouldn't stand up here unless I felt confident with the science. So, get the glutathione levels. How many who you're representing here have even had checks for their glutathione level? Which is like the number one antioxidant that clears out a lot of the gunk for all of us, right? So, and by the way, I'm going to mention a number of supplements like NAC and all that today. Absolutely do not want you going and buying this stuff without, you need to go through a good naturopath, a good medical doctor if they're tuned in this way. We're not looking at, you go out and buying something and shooting it, that's not what we're talking about. We're just sharing with you that people we're supporting maybe need to have a more complete plan that takes care of this. Antipsychotic medications, inappropriate use. CAMH, which as you know is Ontario's gold standards for research and whatnot, doing a lot of great work in this, by the way, hats off to them. They published a report like 4 years ago that said this: there is no evidence to support the use of antipsychotics with people with intellectual disabilities unless there is a corresponding mental health disorder. That was a statement from CAMH. If you look at the number of people with challenging behaviors and look at the medication regimes, over half of them, well, what they found out that went to I don't know how many agencies, they found that 40% of the people who are on antipsychotics in the homes where we are had no dual diagnosis whatsoever, right? And the problem with antipsychotics is they have incredible side effects. Now, I'm not saying no antipsychotics. I'm not saying anything like that. Do not hear that. What I'm saying is we want to go through some of these previous things before we even have to get into antipsychotics. These antipsychotics are used to deal with maladaptive behavior. And if we just take, our basic, half an hour, kind of physical or whatever that we get from an MD, and then move into an antipsychotic, which is not uncommon. Sometimes it is the first drug of choice, which is like, So I'm just saying that make sure that we are looking, and all of this session today, by the way, is helping you to be a better advocate. Motivation and advocate, to ask the questions, right? And after break, we're going to talk about specific questions. But we have to start to advocate a lot better with our community partners. These are good, caring people. Don't hear me saying anything about people not being caring and good. Our community partners, doctors, whoever. I'm just saying that they are not following what the College of Family Physicians of Canada put out like years ago and continues to upgrade. That is not happening in a lot of the people who I work with in Ontario. And you can just decide for yourself what you're going to see here. And then behavioral practices without biomedical treatment. Now here we know the excellent work that behavioralists are doing with a lot of people, and I am a strong supporter of behavior support plans that follow the certification of the governing bodies. And it says those governing bodies, including ONTABA, Ontario Association of Behavior Analysts, says that you must assess for the potential for biomedical comorbidities. And then, if there's none of that, then go ahead with the plan. That's more or less what the plan, what the authority says. So we're just saying that we have to make sure that we're doing that and doing that well. Now, a lot of times it's not happening. It's not because the behavioralist's fault. It's they're saying, well, hey, they went to the GP and the GP just gave them, this, and then we're doing our stuff. Well, we just need to be more complete in the way we're advocating, right? So just Clostridium. Every one of us have got Clostridium in our gut, okay? And by the end of the morning, we're going to show you a really great clip from David Suzuki by a man, a doctor, Dr. Derek McFabe, who consulted with me, by the way, in conscious care and support. You can see the work he's doing at the Keely Patchell Evans Foundation in the University of Western Ontario. It's just an awesome 20 minutes. We're going to make sure we have time for that. But here's what McFabe basically discovered, and this is like across the board. I mean, this is looking at the microbiome. McFabe and anyone who's worth their salt is saying this is not just a solution with the microbiome. We need behavioral done well. We need sensory done well. We need speech and language done well. So we're not saying, oh, get rid of all. No. We're saying that this is the weak cousin on the field because we're just not doing nearly enough in looking at the microbiome as we need to. McFabe was awarded top 50th scientist in Canada for this discovery I'm about to share with you for people with developmental disabilities. So it goes like this. Clostridia, we all have Clostridia in our gut. Turns out that people with autism have several more families of Clostridia than we do. But this is billions of cells, right? And when we eat sugar and simple carbs, we take that Clostridia and it grows into something called propionic acid. Don't worry about my terminology. You can look it up if you want, but just follow the thinking here. It grows into PPA, propionic acid. And propionic acid, when given to healthy rodents, within like a half hour, produces 4 signs of autism. Stimming, lack of socialization. Yeah, it's nuts. Pull the PPA out of the food of healthy rodents, and they go back to being normal. You're going to see some of that in this video. So you can see the importance of diet coming in here, right? Minerals and magnesium. Remember the formula: unmet need, anxiety, fear, behaviors to calm, right? Remember that formula, right? Well, this one here, when we have an imbalance, and these are just examples. We have an imbalance. I don't know if you remember from your grade 10 chemistry, but all our minerals are paired. And zinc and copper are paired. And everyone in this room that has excessively high copper will have anxiety, leading to possibly depression and or even aggressions, even for us, irritability and all that. For people we're supporting, count on it. You have high copper, you're going to get anxiety and you're going to get behaviors. Now, if that person has got low zinc, which they can test for, if your people have tested for low zinc, count on it, they're going to have high copper. This is such a fundamental blood test for $35. That's amazing it's not done on everyone who has a behavior. Because we know that copper will give anxiety sufficient to give behaviors. And we look at the way it works. When you have low zinc, you have high copper. When you put more zinc into the system, you bring the copper down. That's called balance, right? This is just an example of the way vitamins and minerals work. I just want to show you the problem. We'll never work to get out of prison until we know we're in one. What I'm sharing is here, there's some things that we got to get knowing about, right? So intestinal permeability, leaky gut, you've likely heard enough about that. Brain coherence dysregulation. You saw Marcus on that trampoline. Some of you are saying, oh, that's cute, you know, a little exercise. The cerebellum, which is one of the biggest parts in the base of our brain, that cerebellum, one of its jobs is to activate the prefrontal cortex out here. That's its job. And when that's activated sufficiently, thinking happens appropriately, perception happens appropriately, memory happens appropriately. So we make sure that we do two things to get that cerebellum active. One's bouncing and the other's balancing. A lot of the homes that work in, we got a big figure 8 of masking tape on the floor, right? And then we toe-heel walk around that, right? Every morning before breakfast. Why? Because now I'm making things balance. That's balancing and bouncing. The progress that we've made with people just with bouncing and balancing. And they're going to show after break when I show you the solutions to all this. You know, the stabilization balls and trampolines, just amazing what we can do. And then watch the behaviors fall away. Watch people have more quality of life, right? Open your cell phones, would you? Everybody turn your cell phone on. And go to settings. And under settings, look for general, and then legal and regulatory, and then RF exposure. When you take time to read that, this is what the manufacturer of your cell phone is telling you. And I suspect they're telling you to avoid a class action lawsuit that's coming down the pipe. Because what that reading says is this. In Canada, those devices should not be within 5 millimeters of the human body. If you're holding that device right now without a case, you are compromising a part of your body. So let's just do a demo. Could I have a couple of people come up here and just do a little demo with me? You don't have to say anything. You're just going to come up with your cell phone, okay? Okay, great. Oh, look at this. This is awesome. Okay, so just put your cell phone there, okay? Yeah, good. And all of you just put your cell phone there. Okay, so what's your name?
Jennifer.
Jennifer, come over here, would you? So what's your weakest arm? What's your non-dominant arm?
Left.
Okay, so we're going to do it with your strongest arm, okay? Okay, so put your arm up. We're going to do what's called a muscle test. So this is the science of kinesiology. If you do it right, this is like bomb-proof in terms of getting a good indicator that something is impeding the flow of the natural system. And so we're going to do a pre-test now. And Jennifer, was it?
Yep.
Is going to resist me when I try to push down. I want you to all do this when you get home, okay? And when I start to push, she's not going to do this. She's going to hold it steady, okay? Are you ready? Mm-hmm. Go. That's pretty good. That's about half of what I got. Pick up your cell phone, would you? And just put it in your other hand. Give your arm just a couple minutes to relax, because people are going to think, oh, her arm was tired or something. Okay, put it back up, Jennifer. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Put it back up, because they'll think you weren't paying attention and ready. You are ready, right?
Yeah.
I'll do 2 fingers here. What would you say was the condition of your energy and your strength when that happened, pre and post?
I didn't really have as much.
You didn't have as much, did you? Yeah. Studies coming in around 50% every time you pick up that device. Okay. And then let's do another one. I'd like to have to do your non-dominant because you'd be too strong to demonstrate it, okay? So what's your non-dominant? What's your name?
Simon.
Okay, Simon. Okay, so I'm going to use Simon's non-dominant only because it'll be too strong for me to demonstrate this, okay? So, but it works all over the human body. You ready? Resist me?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. So the fact that pre and post on Simon, because he's so strong, it doesn't mean this isn't impacting him. If we had better, tighter measurements here, we would see him go down as well. But let's just see if it does anything. Okay, you ready? Oh, put it up. I thought I'd be able to get that. You ready? So maybe 25, 30% there. Okay, let's do one more. What's your name?
Carrie.
Carrie. All right, Carrie.
Good, and yourself?
Good. Give us your arm up.
My non-dominant arm?
No, give us your dominant.
Oh, my dominant
Okay.
is my...
All right. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Already
Okay.
really weak.
Okay. So where you go. All right. The tester,
I have no arm strength test.
when you're doing this, the tester does not pick up a cell phone, okay? Because that would, okay, put it up. Okay. Are you ready?
Yes.
You weren't ready. Put it up. Your best, okay?
Okay.
She's not acting. She's not acting. Okay, thanks everybody, okay?
Yeah.
So, if you have, okay, so, yeah, do you have the aluminum in the back? Yeah. So, yeah, just leave it in, that's good. So, saving time, I'm not going to, we should have done it with this device because you absolutely need to have a case like this. Because when you do this, you've got your 5 millimeters of protection. So there's no Wi-Fi energy going into my body. A little bit here when you do this, but next to nothing, right? Now, in addition, I won't tear this apart, Leah, but in addition, Leah has got in the back of this case 5-ply aluminum, just out of your kitchen. 5-ply aluminum between this phone and the back of the case. So that gives an extra, serious extra protection from this. So if you carry this one on, you carry it in your butt or wherever, that will be there and be totally protecting you from getting this energy system. Now, can you imagine? Now, if I had another tester, and we'd take more time on this, if I had someone call me or called this phone, you're going to see on this tester, which is calculated by the World Health Organization, you're going to see that it's even significantly more than just what we did here. If you had been calling them or they were transacting, when I did that test, they could hardly hold their arms up. And this is happening to us every time we use this cell phone without that protection. Now, cell phone's here to stay, so you can cut down 90% of this aggravation by just making sure that you're getting a proper case. Now, let me tell you something that's really bad. And I'm not picking on you, okay? But this is fact. If I came back here 6 months from now, at best 25% of you would have a case. This afternoon, I'm going to tell you why. Like everyone you're saying now, gee, that's ridiculous. I mean, if I check the science, and what you say? No. Our minds are not into making changes nearly as much as we think they are. And this afternoon, I'm going to show you this afternoon, I'm going to say you're going to increase the awareness of your brain and your mind and body by 300%. That's the kind of feedback we get on what you're going to get in just 3 hours this afternoon, okay? So let's just get through this motley list so we can do a little bit more. Food intolerances, toxins. What can we say about food? I mean, my gosh. The right vitamin Bs. This should be tested. Every one of you have got, every cell in our body goes through something called the methylation process. Every cell, trillions of them, have got an engine in that cell. Everyone, and that engine, when it's running, it's called the methylation process. It's working. And that cell can do what it's supposed to do. And if you have low folate or B12, that methylation process doesn't work. It's just significantly compromised. So wouldn't you think we'd be testing to see how our methylation is in our B12s and our folates? You'd think so, but not necessarily. Non-restorative sleep, likely enough on melatonin and magnesium. I can't go into sleep totally. We'll do it after break, touch on it, but those are too big. Don't let anybody give anybody sleep aids until you make sure melatonin is right and your magnesium is right. Fears and phobias, after break I'll do more on that. And then the immune system dysregulation. So those are just some of what we're going to show you what to do about after break. And then the mindful emotional self-regulation, that's going to be us after break or after lunch today. Medical doctors, as a minimum, need to be doing this. We need to be asking doctors, what about potential for GERD, PICA, and all these? And this, once again, all the College of Family Physicians say they must be doing this, okay? So then we've got the mental health disorders, of which, there's many, and Phil's not doing a bad job in diagnosing. Once again, we just have to ask our doc, is the best we're doing here? Is this the best medication? When you see a lot of the people who you're supporting, they get diagnosed with high levels of anxiety. You start to get behaviors. I mean, it's the way it works, and I'll show you after break how that is. So you can see that with anxieties, and we get behaviors, many more doctors who are really tuned into what's happening here, they will often be checking for this type of an area so that we know that when we look at just taking care of the basics with our medications and whatnot, many of these people will start off with anti-anxieties, like the clonazepams and things like that, as compared to the antipsychotics. Because antipsychotics have got a whack of nasty, nasty side effects, right? 1 in 4 people on an antipsychotic, 1 in 4 people, that's 25%, will have akathisia or some other movement disorder. Yeah, like they get jumpy and whatnot. So anyway, so you've got these dental and myofunctional, big part in the, by the way, we've got a complimentary textbook for every agency's here. At lunch, come up and give it to us. Because all this stuff, we wrote this 350-page textbook, which we use for the training, of course, but all this is stuff is, of course, in it. So then, sensory, supports lack of emotional management skills, safe management. These are all kind of environmental areas we look at. And then opportunities to live a more complete life. Of course, the social value roles and all the great work we're doing there. And we see so much great work being done there. Okay, so basically then if we do all what we're talking about, and yes, we'll have the anxiety, but if we only do the 3 at the back here, and we don't do treating co-occurring conditions, this awareness, emotional self-regulation, and awareness-based calming, then we're going to be in trouble. We're going to have blow out and blow in, and time again. But I put this slide in just because I love this quote. Listen to this. A counterfeit peace exists when people supported are pacified, distracted, frightened, or so tired of fighting that all appears to others to be calm. That's the blow in. That's the blow in, right? So, on the other hand, though, if we do this work, put in the full program, we're going to have a much greater likelihood of self-regulated nervous system, relative calm, and certainly even well-being, right? So, hear this, because we give a lot of credit to what the behavioral programs are doing in this province. Behavioral interventions such as AB and IB that follow the behavioral analysis standards for certification must follow that, are useful and often necessary complements to the fully integrated biomedical supported development process. With Marcus, we work with regional support associates, and what they did to bring Marcus along, once we had all this taken care of. I mean, Marcus had been on a serious behavior support plan since age 7, and his family worked for 2 or 3 years before that. And psychiatric wards. And by the way, after break, when I talk about Clostridia, one of the biggest things, that PPA problem, that was one of Marcus's problems that we discovered. And the doctors are saying that he likely has had that infection since age 7. Since age 7. What your gut is right now, you will die with. It's like a fingerprint. The gut is just like a fingerprint, I'm told by experts. Once again, I'm just passing on good stuff that I've seen accurate and working, right? So, more complete and integrated process, the greater the potential for ABA to enhance well-being and prevent and manage anxiety and aggression. And once again, they're a vital partner on the team. All research implementing ABA and ABI includes following the board standards. See, the board had put out the great results we get from ABA and ABI because they did all this stuff before they published research to say, if you do this kind of interventions behaviorally, you will get these results, which you will. But they're also saying that they did all this stuff up front, which is what they advertise, right? Which is good research. So then advocacy, pretty much for anyone that's showing any signs of lack of well-being, we should be looking at these being on the team, you know? Yeah. And just for the directors here of agencies, some of you might be saying, this guy's getting me to spend a lot more money than I want to spend here. It's not so. It's not so. Like I say, Marcus went from $950,000 down to $150 now, $150,000. The money we spend on what I'm talking about here is chump change than what we are spending now. This is not a money problem. And I'll have a lot of support professionals in training say, oh, my manager would never go for it. And I said, you know what? I have yet to meet, and I've worked almost 50 agencies now, I've yet to meet directors of an agency that don't go full into this once they see it. Because money is not the problem. So, just to wrap this up, and then we're going to watch one little video, and then we're going to have a break in about 5 minutes, okay? Awareness-based calming, which is what you're going to look at this afternoon. The GI that we're just going to look at in more detail after break, the answers and what to do. Emotional wellness, this is all the hierarchy of needs that we have, right? Emotional wellness, brain development, coherence, balancing, inflammation. You're going to see some great stuff on that. And human energy, building and balancing the systems, which is really, really cool. Sensory integration, of course, and then the environmental piece. So this is where great ABA and all that comes in. Okay, so let's listen to Dr. Sonia for 5 minutes, and then we'll take a break, okay?
Hi, I am Dr. Sonia Doherty. I'm a naturopathic doctor focused on assessing and treating the medical aspects of autism and developmental delays. Some of the most significant health concerns we see are presenting with behaviors like aggression and self-injury, mouthing, biting, chewing, teeth grinding, sleep disturbances. And these have actually been linked to problems that are happening in the gut. So these can be undiagnosed medical issues like constipation, diarrhea, retained fecal matter, fecal loading, reflux, esophageal eosinophilia. People diagnosed with autism are 4 times more likely to have a digestive problem, and they're much less likely to get diagnosed because they are presenting with behaviors. So I've had the privilege of working with Peter Marks and the Center for Conscious Care and Support for many years. We've worked with this amazing group to look at assessing these individuals properly, getting their medical concerns treated, and what we've seen is a significant reduction in these behaviors and a drastic improvement in their quality of life. So this is really important work. The research has shown, both through looking at the microbiome, like the ecosystem in the gut, but also these medical and undiagnosed, often digestive concerns, that it is a cause of behavior. It's a cause of people needing extra care in places like group homes or extra care in schools. It also is a huge cost to our healthcare system, including the emergency department. People are much more likely, if they have a diagnosis of autism, to end up in ER with aggression. So we need to really, first, from a quality of life standpoint, this is not the way people should be living. And then secondary to that, I think it's going to be better entirely for our communities if we are assessing the right things and treating the right things. So I'd like to just show you a couple things here. There's a great paper by Dr. Tim Bowie, who's a pediatric gastroenterologist at Boston Children's. He also serves on the Interagency Coordinating Committee for the Autism Advisory Board for the National Institutes of Health, so the NIH, and serves on the Harvard Medical School Team's Clinical Advisory Board. So this paper was released in 2010, and there is an updated version of this paper that I encourage you to check out. This one's a little bit more user-friendly, and I really think it's important that in Table 2, it focuses on that these behaviors are linked to abdominal pain or discomfort. So, and this is significant pain. We know people diagnosed with autism and other developmental delays do have sensory issues. They have different feedback for pain. Sometimes they don't feel pain at all. Sometimes they're self-injurious, trying to create pain, most likely to relieve pain they're already in that has not been identified. So I think if you work on the front lines as a educator, PSW, you work in a group home setting or like in the school system, I think that you will recognize many of these behaviors. And I think some of the most concerning ones are here. Right. Also, I have parents who haven't slept in 10, 20 years. And obviously sleep is a huge factor in our quality of life and our long-term health and well-being. So what's happening in the gut can be an undiagnosed digestive disorder. It can also be alterations in the microbiome. The Microbiome Project was an international project to look at the ecosystem in the gut. We have hundreds of trillions of bugs that live in the gut, and whatever's happening in terms of who's in charge of the gut governs brain function. So with people diagnosed with autism, they have had increased levels of things like Clostridia, which is a bacteria, yeast, which is fungus. They have alterations in their microbiome leading to changes in what's called their metabolome, which is the metabolism that really governs the way that the body functions. So improving that, again, improves absorption of nutrients, improves overall developmental potential, ability to focus, learn, socialize. When you're not in pain and your body's making enough energy, it can make a huge difference. And it does. We've seen that through the pilot project with the Center of Conscious Care and Support, and seen that huge reduction in behaviors and big increase in opportunities to enjoy people's lives when they do have these diagnoses and they have proper medical treatment. So we know that change in diet can make a huge difference. With lots of research on people not being able to digest certain things like gluten, dairy, carbohydrates in general, and putting people on a diet that removes gluten, removes dairy, maybe even sometimes corn, or all the carbohydrates. A diet that they call paleo or modified ketogenic can make a massive difference. Dr. Martha Herbert, pediatric neurologist at Harvard, has a wonderful book on this called The Autism Revolution. And Dr. David Perlmutter, also a neurologist, has a great series of books. One of them is called Grain Brain, that looks at this research. So we need to look at continuing to advocate and bring awareness to these medical concerns, because they are going undiagnosed, they're going untreated, and they're resulting in significant behaviors and causing major pain and discomfort, reduction in quality of life for both individuals and their family members and the people that they're working with. So thank you so much for listening. Please let us know if we can do anything to get you information that can help change lives.
So when people say, well, Peter, why isn't this already happening in the province? Why isn't Quam looking at, no, it's not that simple. And this afternoon, I'm going to show you why it's not that simple, right? And one final one, how many years do you think it took before they proved beyond any doubt that the 3-point seatbelt saved lives and injury? How long do you think it took till the best research available was published, till they finally got legislation happening? Give me a number. 17 years. It took our government to say, I think we should make that mandatory because people are just not getting on with the program, just like so many other things. Because education is not enough. The insights I'm giving you here are not enough. This afternoon, we're going to show you what you have to do in your own minds to become this advocate, and what the blockages are, okay? We're starting with this GI, and just a couple of things I want to just finish on with that. This is a really important thing to know, that we are 99% critters and only 1% human cells. And these critters will drive our life. You wonder why you eat too many sweets and whatnot? Because it's the critters that are demanding to be fed. If you think that we've got this far in evolution and have not really come off the rails in terms of just shutting down, it's because these critters are into survival and reproduction, and that's their job. So we have to manage these a lot better, okay? And I mentioned this study to you before. We're going to do a bit on the Dr. McFavorite a bit later. Here's a good question for you. Give me a show of hands. How many have noticed that people who you've supported or indirectly supported you know about, how many of you have had at least one person like that seems to have an unusually high pain threshold? Give me a show of hands. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, that's what I get. And when I ask you, why do you think that is? People say, well, they got autism, developmental disability. Nothing to do with the disability, nothing. Here's what it's got to do with. There's two chances here. The first one is they have a microbiome that is not processing food right, and that food literally sits there putrefied. And it forms a morphine-like substance. And that morphine, just like any other morphine, will give pain resistance. So that's number one. And number two, when you see that, I mean, this is like 90% of these people. You've either got that or you've got excessive cortisol running in the system. And of course, if you have excessive cortisol running in the system, it's because people are anxious. And remember the formula, it's because of unmet needs. Unmet needs will bring people to anxiousness. And when we are anxious, excessive cortisol, and cortisol is very important for many reasons, but many people have 24/7 excess cortisol, and it compromises the immune system, it compromises the ability to process food. It's just so much. We have to get at dropping the anxiety levels, right? And this is some of the way we're doing it. So you can just see how important this is to get this one right? Listen to this. The brain in its wisdom, when it sees that it has all this problem with excessive cortisol, brain says, this is not good. I got to do something about this. So what does it do? It steals amino acids that are supposed to be going into digesting food to neutralize this cortisol. Doesn't stop there. Steal amino acids are supposed to go into building the immune system. Doesn't stop there. Literally steals amino acids that were supposed to be developing calming neurotransmitters like GABA and serotonin. Isn't that insidious? This is what's happening. Anxiety is the name of the game. Like if we can learn to drop anxiety through looking at these unmet needs, we're going to have people that are much more complete in their well-being, okay? So some of the benefits and risks of antipsychotics, I covered that before break, and I think I'm going to just move on with that. If you have any questions specific on meds, I'll be here like over lunch and later on, but I'm not going to go into specifics there, okay? But I will get into these two questions to make sure that as we're advocating, we're asking the doctor. We're advocating for anyone. How will we know if this is effective and helpful? One, and what will we observe if there are unacceptable side effects? That is like basics. You know, we've got to get those two questions asked. I'm going to show you this afternoon kind of what to do about more of that. Ensure accurate tracking. This is really important. Many doctors who I work with are not really, when I go to them and say, this is the situation, they say, well, I didn't know that. Now, when I come in and work with a family or an agency, then the people who we work with, we get very specific, and we have a tracking tool, and all the teams will fill out the tracking tool. It's got about 20, 25 questions on it. And when the doctor says, okay, so what did you come here for with Judy or Sam? If they can speak and be involved, always turn to them and have them answer the questions. But if you're advocating, and these additional doctors' visits are sometimes a bit deep, so you've got to bring your own self to this. But you bring this tracking tool. This tracking tool that's showing these 20 different kinds of behaviors and things we're looking for, how they eat, and just things like that. Then when the doctor said, how can I help you? You say, well, doctor, our team put this together, and I'll just give you 3 or 4 minutes to review it. Boom. And you shut up. Big thing on advocating, when you ask a good question, you shut up. You don't say anything more. Never talk when the professional's thinking. Never, right? So that will significantly help with this process. I mean, if you find yourself going to an advocacy meeting with a person you're supporting, and the doctor says, so how's it going? You say, well, it's pretty good. I think, it's better than it was. And no. We want to use that 15 minutes as valuable as we can, right? Now, this next point's a really important one on that checklist. Don't contaminate, and the behavioralists are going to love what I'm saying here, because behavioralists are known for their tracking good data and responding to good data. Am I right, table? Yes. Now, if, as this room just said, 50% of the behaviors are coming from us, you know your data, if you're just taking raw data, it's 50% off, right? So we have to make sure that when we are giving data about behavioral intervention, problems and the likes of that, that we are pulling out these situations when we contributed to it. Because the behavioralists need to have pure data. I just wish I could talk 5 minutes on that. It's really important that when we know we've been contributing here, we need to have a little ask or something. Now, I've read over, 5,000, I don't know how many behavior support plans, and incident reports mainly. And I very seldom see someone on an incident report say, I blew it. Like, I just don't see it, okay? So we have to start being honest, because it's not bad to blow it. It's just, we're just struggling to really be as good as we can be, and sometimes we miss it, right? This one here, in terms of brain development, this is a really important little piece to get. So, the MRI on the right there, that's you right now. Just a quick little understanding of the brain, who we are beautiful spiritual beings. That's who we are, I believe. But what we are is electromagnetic energy. That's what we are, okay? And that runs on electrical frequencies. All of you right now have got a number of different brain waves, you know, beta, theta, alpha, delta when you're sleeping. From 25 to 30 hertz. A guy named Hertz discovered this. I'm not going to get too nerdy here, honest. I just need to preface with this. So you right now are running at about 25 hertz. You can understand what's being said, and there you are. Now, when you slept last night, you were down to about 6 hertz, just enough in the delta range, just enough to keep your basic organs alive. You woke up this morning, you hit snooze. You're now around 12, 14 hertz when you hit snooze. Just come out of your sleep, right? You say to your partner, don't bug me till I have my coffee, you know, and just, you know, you're still there, right? Well, guess what? 30%, thereabouts, of the people we support never naturally get above 14, 15 hertz. They don't. Their brain is not wired to be able to do that unless two things happen. Unless two things happen. One, they aggress, argumentative, even pushing, and even stronger, self-injurious behaviors. And that puts them into fight or flight zone, and their hertz go right up to their full 25 hertz. Or bouncing and balancing. Once again, activate the cerebellum, gets the front part of the brain working, and here we are. We've got then calm and things that are working. Always remember, when you're seeing someone early in the morning who's struggling, if you look at your behavior support plans and your incident reports, a lot of them, over half of them I found in some agencies are like between 7 and 9 in the morning. A lot of people have got this problem, right? So that is understanding this. Once again, that's just a little remedy. We got, you know, with Marcus, we just got like 3 or 4 minutes on that trampoline in the morning and things stopped. The other way, and I'm going to show you a bit later on what we can do about it. But here are the brainwave patterns. I pretty much said most of that. By the way, beta brainwaves are significantly responsible for our thinking, okay? And when you don't have beta brainwaves happening, you're going to have trouble with people making sense of the world. So the beta, like I say, is where you are now. So we want to use exercise and bouncing, bring the brainwaves up, and then we're going to have people be able to think their way through. And even, I mean, the number of people who just on trampolines, the trampoline, I wish I had taken out sales in Century One who sell these trampolines, because it's really, really helpful. Just in terms of the brain, which you're going to see more about this afternoon for us, but this is really an important slide, that there's a part of the brain, the medial prefrontal cortex, which you're going to see this afternoon. When it gets activated and gets working, it's just amazing what we can do, and we can train it. I'm going to teach you this afternoon mindfulness, how to actually grow neuron cells in the medial prefrontal cortex. Grow cells, literally grow cells, okay? And it's like, couldn't be more important. Just in some of the work that's being done, neurofeedback, I won't get into details of it, but you'll see when you read this slide, and I got my reference there, but basically this young person was struggling, went in just about 40 visits or thereabouts. He drew his family, like at the bottom, when he started off at stick, and that was just after 40 treatments of neurofeedback. So then, training the self-regulation can be successful and sustainable in the following areas. These are areas that research is showing we can actually train. We think, oh, well, autism, what can you do? No, no, no. There's many areas in the brain that can be developed. Many areas that can be developed. So, and they're just the ones that can do that, okay? Stimulation of the cerebellum, as I just mentioned, you know, less confusion because they can think and all that, okay? Stabilization balls, like you're seeing here, or even elliptical cushions, the small little cushions that go on a kitchen chair, even those are just incredible. In the homes I worked in, I say all 6 kitchen chairs should have these little $25 elliptical cushions. And then you sit there and you're just kind of wobbling just a little bit. When you're doing that, that's food to the brain. That is just activating that part of the brain that needs to. And it's just so simple. It's passive. We don't have to be doing anything. Staff sit on them. People we support sit on them. Yeah, it works well. Brain development, each time we become mindful, just you're going to see this happen, each time we become mindful, we actually grow neuron cells. And this afternoon, what I'm going to teach you in terms of working with mindfulness, I'm going to show you how this can actually be brought into people we're supporting. It's just so incredible. The Marcus is doing mindful, has now for a couple of years, and it's really most encouraging. I had this, this was in, was it Stratford? This just happened last year. I just got to share this for 1 minute only. Keep me on my time clock. They asked me if I'd see a person who I had actually seen about 6-7 years before. And he really liked the mindfulness, and his workers were just so good. They took my tapes and for CDs, and this man for 6 years, every day at 2 o'clock, he had to have his mindfulness piece, okay? So the staff asked me if I would come in, because he wouldn't have recognized me over that period of time, come in and actually do an actual mindfulness with him. So I showed up around 1:30, and then at 2 o'clock, he was getting his staff to put on the CD. And I said, "Can I lead you in that?" And he said, "Okay." So I said, "Because I'm not the guy you've been talking to." He looked at me, "Okay." And so I led that little mindfulness with him, and he came out with this big grin, you know. He really felt a part of it then, right? It was really a neat moment. Just more from your best, some of your best people, Norman Doig, Siegel. These are top neuroscientists, okay? Put the slide in. This is not an MRI of a person with developmental disabilities, but it's such an encouraging slide. This little gal name was Cameron Mott, and at age 4, this is in David Eagleman's book, The Brain. At age 4, she had a major seizure disorder, and she was falling over at the helmet, hurting herself, and the doctor said she likely wouldn't live beyond late teens because of this disorder. So they asked permission to take out half her brain. Now at that time, this was about 20 years ago now, she's I think about 24, 25. Asked to take out half her brain. The animal studies were still coming in positive, and a few people had it done, but it was just in its infancy. Parents went for it, and the results of that operation were, aside from some weakening on one side of her body, she is indistinguishable from her classmates. She is a good student and participates in sports. She's got half a brain. I put that in just for all of us to know that brain plasticity and what we can do with the brain, and more on this afternoon, but what we can do to encourage people to be able to have more completeness just by doing a few of the simple exercises we've been talking about. It's so encouraging just to see what we can do. Because I'm going to show this afternoon parts of the brain for people with developmental disabilities that can be developed seriously, okay? And that's just a little bit on cardio that we talked about, and that's a high-end mini trampoline for sure. That happens to be my trampoline, but you can get them at a much less. This is like $300 hit, but you can get them for 120, 140 bucks. I work with a man in community living in Cambridge, and Stephen was his name. And they asked me if I work with Stephen. I said, sure. So Stephen was very aggressive, 3 male supporters for 18 hours, and then like maybe down to 2 when he slept. So they said, will you work with Stephen? And I said, sure, let's do it. So I went over to meet Stephen, and 4 supporters came in behind me. And I said to them, I said, would you mind waiting outside? And they said, he'll tear you apart. And I said, well, I want you looking in and making sure that if he starts to tear me apart, that you come in immediately and take care of me. But the reason I didn't want them coming in was because they bring the energy in, which is the nervous, fearful energy. If you see these people of me here and them there, me the support of them, that, they need this. And when you get separation happening, you get fearful. And then fear begets fear, and calm begets calm. So I went in to see him, and I went into his room, and he stood up, and he came towards me, and I blocked one punch, and then he backed off, and he did a double pirouette, okay? But he flew up in the air. And I said, whoa. Staff came in, I said, does he do those pirouettes very often? And they said, all the time. I said, okay, here's what I want you to do. Go down to K & Tire and get me a mini trampoline. Try to have a handle on it, but just do what you can do. So they came back in half an hour. We talked for a while. They came back in half an hour. I said, put it in the middle of the room. So I stood on this trampoline, and I put my hands out for Stephen to come in and hold me. And he just like that, sitting against the wall. So I asked one of the staff, and I held my hands, and I bounced for about a minute or two. And then he came over, and I put my hands out, and he grabbed my hands, and he pulled me right off the trampoline, and he stood on it. whoa, this is cool. So he started bouncing, never left it for an hour and a half. You can ask the Lourdes Thoreau, who was the director at the time, running this program. Never left for an hour and a half. This man, all he got was proprioceptive, from the sensory people, proprioceptive simulation, and that's what he was getting out of this. Just out of the trampoline, just up and down. It was on for 4 or 5 hours. His behaviors totally stopped. It took about a year, but they had him right down to like 1-to-1. And that was just because he was getting the stimulation, proprioceptive stimulation, that he wasn't getting before, and he needed it. This guy wears out 4 trampolines a year. Canadian Tire trampolines, 4 a year. Yeah, ask him if you know anybody from Cambridge. Anyway, I just had to share that. It's kind of a cool story. By the way, just on that, would all of you stand up? That's good. Now, would you all sit down? Now, a kind of miracle just happened. I didn't notice anybody, maybe someone was looking, but I didn't notice anybody saying, no, where's my chair? I gotta look at where this is going here. And no one was looking where their chair was, but your butt just touched the chair perfectly. Do you notice that? Like no one. Well, that's only because your proprioceptive sensory system is working well. If it wasn't working well, you would have slammed on that chair or whatever else. And that alone brings enough anxiety for people to be a hitter or a self-abuser. Remember, anxiety is the worst of all. It's the way we're designed. Anything you can do to get rid of anxiety, people will do. And by the way, when you are hitting and you are self-abusing, you are no longer anxious consciously. Sensory integration. Wow, what can we say about sensory? Now, a lot of sensory is, you know the 7 sense stores that we have, eight I guess, and some have put it up to 12. But some of that, if the senses are off, then we're going to struggle. So you like to have this basic in your training, but I'm just going to flip through the sensory stuff. First of all, people who have hypersensitivity. In other words, there's like their system is making more of the data than it normally would be. So for them, things are too loud, too fast, too scratchy, too tight, too bright, whatever, right? Person goes off to school and they're fine. They get nervous at school, and all of a sudden the tag on that back of the neck of the blouse is just bothering them like you wouldn't believe, because they're on the edge of just hyperactivity, right? And then, of course, what I'm going to put there? I'm going to put anxiety, because unmet needs, right? And then over here, agitation, angers, and whatever else comes. But that's not everybody. There's another group that things are too quiet. So normally there would be a certain input, and that you would get it here. But when you're in a hypo, then no matter what normal is giving you, it's not enough. So then things are too quiet, too slow, too dark, too loose, too tickly, too confusing. And so they need stimulation. One of the greatest, first of all, shout out to school board people. They've done great work and working with a lot of people, but it needs to be said that the craze of working with people with developmental disabilities in these snoozing rooms, and everyone here's heard of snoozing, right? Well, snoozing rooms basically came in as what we call white rooms, designed for people who are hyper to calm them down. So we think, well, yeah, if I had a snoozing room, that'd be great. For 40% of the students that went into these calming white rooms, it drove them crazy because they were hypo, like here. So they needed stimulation. They didn't need it turned down. So when you're seeing people, you're thinking, oh, well, it's like a sensory issue. It's never just simple. And, there may be some sensory specialists here, but they will tell you it's never just, a sensory problem, get them calm. No, it's much more than that. So and eventually we'll have this happening, right? So then some of the work that I've done and watched in terms of this sensory being off, this is one of the big ones. There's many, but I just want to talk about a couple of symptoms because these ones are really obvious and nasty. So the majority of people with developmental disabilities startle much more readily than people, that have just not had sensory issues. Believe it or not, many people we support, they'll startle after a plate hits the ground or a yell happens. They could startle for up to an hour. Believe it or not, like numbers go to 30, 40%. The people we support when they have this type of a sensory issue. So if you're supporting someone like that, you want to get and doing some calming. And right after lunch, I'm even trying to work it in this morning. I'm going to show you some calming strategies for people we're supporting. I'm going to show you the 5 big ones, the way we calm people. And if we have this situation with the startle, we need to get to people as soon as we can, because many people who will get into behaviors and whatnot, when they are not startled, it's not so bad. We say, I don't know what, Peter's doing fine, and then people get started for some reason, and then all heck breaks loose. Well, we don't have to just sit back and just let that happen, okay? But here's the nasty part of it. When this happens, this is right from Dr. John Rady from Harvard, who's really helped me so much with this. Rady and Martha Herbert, her book was The Autism Revolution, from Harvard. They're basically a phone call away, and they really were so instrumental in helping me with a lot of this, as well as some other folks in different places. But this is one thing that they taught me, is that if we get anxious, we sensories are off, lights will be 5 times brighter and my voice will be 5 times louder. Can you imagine that? And we're just sitting there, we don't realize it, right? That's why we have to stay tuned into these assessments and what we need to do. So then, prevalence of sensory problems, high percentage of challenging behaviors. Yeah, I've covered that, I think, well enough. A person's preferred stimming often gives a clue as to what sensory system is deficient or compromised. I just said a mouthful there. Watch how people stim. If it's tactile, if it's audio, it says a lot, okay? And occupational therapists who are trained in sensory are the best qualified to assess and plan interventions. Like OTs are just, but it's really important. I don't know what the numbers are in Ontario, but I'm guessing maybe only around 1 in 5 OTs are really qualified to do this kind of treatment. They can all do assessments, like assessments that are pretty standard, but we need to have someone who's really qualified in this area to really make a difference there, okay? So this is really, really important around sensory. Boom, boom, boom. The GI system makes the neurotransmitters that are supposed to regulate our sensory system. So it's not just a matter of getting exercises to do with sensory. We've got to go back to the gut. If the gut's off, we're going to have sensory issues. Hear that? It's just, we got to. Some of the great practices ABA and IBI do make sure that we get good instructions from behaviorists. Don't just see it on a plan, but you make sure that behaviorist comes in and spends the hours that you need to see that demonstrated. Let them demonstrate it to the person, and then you can then learn that way. That's the best way to learn it. Not just read it on a plan, but good behavioralists are all over that, so that's what they normally do. But it's really, really helpful to just ABA and IBI in itself. And then the social interaction, of course, goes slow and in ways that right? And then just socially valued roles, can't say enough about it. But I have to say this, that we spend a lot of time in socially valued roles and social inclusion, which is just excellent. But sometimes, cart before the horse, like we have to make sure we got the basics, and then we can get so much more out of socially valued roles. It just makes such good sense that if people are struggling with just being stable, that we're not going to be getting a lot of effect from the socially valued roles. So let's just make sure we're doing as much as we can, okay? In the book, pages, we got about 7 or 8 pages of just 45 of our absolute best. We've seen hundreds and hundreds of interventions on good environmental changes and whatnot, and we'll get those to you when I put them. We'll make sure they get sent out with you, okay? So then kind of a summary here, and then we're getting some questions. Train leaders and support professionals to 1, implement holistic and preventive support practices as recommended by governing organizations and associations. Number 1, started with that, end with that. Number 2, advocate for medical practitioners to follow the guidelines of the College of Family Physicians of Canada. Now, I know you're saying, hey, I can't tell my doctor what to do. Well, you can't. But what you can do is when the doctor says, we're going to do this, this, and this, you can say, Now, I'm just new at this, and I don't know a lot about the details, but is this like what's in the College of Family Physicians recommendations? Is this what is recommended when you get trained? Ask those questions, because they may say, of course it is, but that may get them looking better, looking deeper. It's when we ask the tough questions. It's not that you necessarily get a good answer, but you may be setting it up to make 6 months from now happen. Because I know medical doctors who said to me, once we get to know them, they've said to me, I was doing this, this, and this. I got no training in autism and developmental disabilities, like none. And yet here I am trying to prescribe medications, do all kinds of things. And when I was asked a good, constructive, challenging question I couldn't answer, I said to them, oh yeah, that's right, but I didn't. And I went and checked it out, and I was wrong. And they came back. That's how we start to educate. And if we don't do it, it's not going to happen. If we do not take the responsibility to work with doctors, and, well, that's interesting, though. What would be the benefits of doing it that way, doctor? You never ask why. Get why right out of your vocabulary. Why is this too self-righteous a question? You can't phrase it soft enough. But you ask, what reasons would you have for that? So we're going to also show you, we're going to send you along in that handout how to advocate 12 of our best, which is, once again, it's in the book. And this is all, as I said, a highlight of the course that we teach. We teach 4 full days on this, so we're going to do much deeper. But we're trying to give you a really good, and as I said, you're going to walk away with there with 30 or 40 things that you could do right off the bat. You don't need to, but we can do an awful lot more when we do the 4 days, of course. Advocate for all behavioral support plans to be integrated with necessary biomedical and medical treatments. We said that several times, and it makes sense to every behavioralist, so they love that, all right? 4, COM-regulated developmental service to be preventive as well as supportive and treatment-based. So when you have a chance, no matter where you are, just the QAM auditors that come in, it's okay for you to ask them, say, now, all of this that we're showing you, how we're meeting compliance, could you share with me the research that backs this up in a very professional way? And you're not being nasty here, you're just asking. When we get working with those frontline compliance officers, it goes back upstream and change gets made. This is how we knock the time off those 22 years or those 17 years. It starts with us. I cannot say that enough. Positive change starts with this level. It truly, truly does. So you walk away from here today, I hope you take 2 or 3 things and say, yeah, I'm going to start asking questions of some of our treatment community partners to get them to maybe do more, right? And then provide advocacy and training in what we're going to do this afternoon, right? So then, through substantial and sustainable family support and leaders, training is evidence-based best practices, development and conscious self-regulation, which we're going to do, and people will then have a chance to live life to their fullest potential. Really important to learn calming strategies. I can't say enough about this. So we've done what we can biomedically. Now we're going to get into, like we're doing this afternoon, we're going to get into some actual things that we can do. As I shared with you, we've got serious problems with the sensory systems and anxiety and all that, so we need to be able to bring things to a calm. So I need to demonstrate this. Oh, let's do it. I'll tell you about it first. So I'm going to take you through several different exercises. So spread out your tables as best you can. First of all, this first one will be okay. You can just kind of stay where you are. This is what I'd like you to do. This is called the butterfly hug. Everybody start doing this with me. A really great neuroscientist, 30-odd years ago, I forget her name, I wish I could remember it. She wanted, why is it when we rock kids, they get calm? And why is it that we do rocking chairs and we get calm, subjectively calm? What's happening? So she said, I'm going to find that out. So she looked into the brain. Turns out that as we do these exercises, the brain goes into equal electrical activity in either hemisphere. So what you're doing right now is you are bringing your brain into equal electrical activity in each hemisphere. I hit here, I get a jolt in my right hemisphere. I hit here, I get a jolt over here. It's opposite, right? So what you're doing, you do this for 3 minutes. And if we took blood pressure before and after, even heart rate before and after, you're going to find a calming takes over. And you will start to literally subjectively report calming. So this is called the butterfly hug. And you can do this like with anyone at any time. And we practice this, like before breakfast or after breakfast, we practice this. I say just take 3 or 4 minutes and we just all do this. And then when this person starts to show agitation or, impatience or whatnot, we can say, Peter, let's do our hug, right? And you start to do it. Now let's say Peter doesn't do it. You keep doing it anyway. Even when you're standing talking to someone, just start doing it, even if times are good. As much as you can bring this into your schedule, the better. Do you know that 50% of the benefits of us doing it, 50% of the benefits goes to that person when they're just watching you do it? It's crazy, right? I mean, this afternoon I'm going to show you why this is, how the brain's wired. But yeah, just someone watching you do this, they get calmer. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. The next one is a little bit different. Here you're going to activate calming meridian points in the body. That was bilateral. Then we teach bilateral and biomeridian. Now meridian points, these acupressure points, acupuncture points, by the way, North American, Western trained medical doctors have approved over 30 years ago, all these meridian points are all in the doctor's manuals. So they've finally approved it. The East discovered it 1,000 years ago, and we discovered it 30 years ago, but at least we got it here. So when we talk about these meridian points, so there's got 9 of them. I'm only going to show you a couple, but just start doing it. Touch in here, just to put an inch down from your collarbone, and there's a place that's going to be a little bit more sensitive. Anybody found that? Just, if you press hard enough, you're going to see that. I see a lot of heads nodding, so that's good. So now with 3 fingers, we're just going to alternate tapping. So we're doing bilateral again, one side then the other, but we're now stimulating. We're now stimulating this calming pressure point. And if you ever get acupuncture for anything, you know this is one of the areas the doctors will put needles for calming. And for you, if you're feeling anxious at any time, right, go into a bathroom cubicle and just do this for 3 minutes, and you'll come out and you're going to be calmer. You actually will. Your jobs are really tough, as we know. So that's the bilateral biomeridian collarbone activation. The next one is this. Could I have a volunteer? You don't have to sing. I just have to do this with you so you can see it, okay? So each of you get a partner at your table, and I'd like you to do this, what we're about to do. What's your name?
Sarah.
Okay, Sarah. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Sarah to put her hands out like this, okay? And I'm going to be the giver, so I'm going to cross my hands like this. And when I'm going to take this point right in here, see right in that point there, and I'm going to take it in the other hand here, and then I'm going to start to give one off, one on, one on, one off. Do it right now. Grab a partner and do it as you're watching this. Now you do me.
Love it.
Good. Yeah. One on, one off. That's great, Sarah. Thanks a lot. So right into that, just the fleshy part of the hand, that is a really alive, calming pressure point, okay? Now, I won't say that I've verified this research out of a dozen different sites, which is my nerdy tendency, but there is good research coming from the Heart Math Institute, but what I'm about to tell you. So, that calming strategy, not only does it activate the biomeridian, not only does it go bilateral, but when you touch, there's something called oxytocin. Anybody heard of oxytocin? Okay. So when you touch another person's skin, you develop oxytocin in each other. And actually it works with a cat or an animal as well. I don't know if you knew that or not. But so when you're touching, you're increasing that person's oxytocin. And oxytocin is this cooperative, this caring, this feeling good. It's a part of our basic DNA. Part of the chemical factor you're going to hear about this afternoon. it really activates. It's a part of the herding instinct, the mating instinct. So when we touch, we get very significant benefits from that through this piece called oxytocin. And number 4 benefit from this little strategy is that when you are touching like that, listen to this, this is Heart Math Institute, your heart rates go into sync. It means this, that the person whose heart rate is calmer, they start to bring the other person's heart rate down to calmer like yours. Isn't that amazing? And it's significantly enhanced by this touching, right? So 4 benefits from that, the bilateral biomeridian, and then also looking at those other benefits that just come through oxytocin and the likes of that. So that's pretty great stuff, right? So that's the big 3. We're going to teach you this afternoon about using mindful exercises for calming as well. But remember this and remember this well just on this calming thing. Calm begets calm, fear begets fear. Anytime we are with someone that we're feeling fearful, a bit anxious, we've had a really bad morning with, before we left home and we're bringing it, and nobody leaves their problems at home, as you well know. So when we get in there, we have to do our own best to get calm. This afternoon, I'm going to show you how to do that for yourselves, okay? So with that, this is a great clip. You've all heard of David Suzuki. I haven't got the full clip on here, but there's more than enough for you to see. This, by the way, was looked at through the Journal of Developmental Disability Services. So every statement that's made is accurate according to the best science that the journal folks would put out. So that's an important point to hear. You're going to see a lot of what's going to come up here is the work of Dr. David McFabe at the Kitty Patchell Evans Foundation. The Kitty Patchell is the name of the owner of the Good Life Fitness Clubs. His daughter has autism. Her name is Kitty Patchell. And so he puts $5 to $6 million a year into this center at Western University. And McFabe is like world renowned for the work he's done, okay? And he takes it through, and you're going to see a little bit more underpinnings behind some things that I've said this morning about looking at the microbiome. So with that.
At this point, Andrew's 4 years and 9 months old. He didn't like to really play with toys. He would pull the books off the bookshelves or VCR tapes off and just play with them on the floor, but not really in a meaningful way. He was very stiff and postured. A lot of toe walking, which is seen in children with autism. Of course, he's not really making eye contact here at all. He had no language at this point, just he uttered noises. Mostly he uttered E, E, over and over again. He seemed healthy, except for, and this is very important, he had a lot of GI symptoms. His stool was foamy, mucousy, bulky. It wasn't like anything I ever seen come out of a kid before, and with 4 kids. He started to refuse to eat solid food, but he would eat non-edibles, tissue, paper, ashes from the fireplace, the drywall off the walls.
Ellen's biggest fear was that the developmental window for Andrew to acquire language was quickly passing. She had to do something.
I felt called to start researching in spite of having no medical background at all.
Ellen's starting point was Andrew's history compared with her first 3 children's developmental roadmap. The only difference she found with Andrew was his experience with antibiotics. It didn't take long for her to stumble upon the name Feingold.
One of the lesser known problems with antibiotic use is that they do impact the bowel flora.
At 90 years old, Dr. Sidney Feingold is still considered one of North America's best microbiologists. He's been researching bowel flora since the 1950s.
The human bowel is a remarkable organ. If you were to stretch it all out, it would be the dimensions of a tennis court. It has many different bacteria in it normally, a great variety, probably between 1,000 and 10,000 different types of bacteria. These children are susceptible to ear infections, and so they receive antibiotics, and the antibiotics intend to select out certain organisms while they suppress much of the rest of the flora. Now, the organisms that tend to persist are Clostridia.
Clostridia are a family of around 100 species of bacteria. A few of them are pathogenic, extremely hardy, and resistant to most antibiotics. They also produce neurotoxins that affect the brain. But Ellen found that it might be possible to attack the Clostridia specifically with a particular antibiotic.
I really felt, you know, if we go on this premise, if we act on this premise, he can be helped. An antibiotic that specifically targets Clostridium in the intestinal tract could potentially be a huge benefit to him. So I started writing doctors. Many of them simply referred me to somebody else because they felt it was, you know, outside of their expertise. It didn't clearly fit with infectious disease, it didn't clearly fit with gastroenterology, it didn't clearly fit with neurology, immunology. So I was hitting on all of these different specialists.
After 15 months and 37 doctors, Ellen found a gastroenterologist who agreed her theory should be tested. They began Andrew on an 8-week trial of one of the only antibiotics known to kill Clostridia.
The results were astounding.
Oh, wait.
Within a matter of just a few weeks, he became calm. He was aware of his environment and responsive enough to begin potty training, which was instantly successful.
Good boy!
He's now beginning to play with toys. He's leaving clothing on.
Yes. Yes. That's your new word, huh? Yes. And no. No. Good boy. Good thing. No. Oh, good boy.
He's putting puzzles together.
He does them all backwards. He did his name backwards. He's doing these all backwards.
Oh, nice kisses. More kisses?
That was the end of the 8-week trial. Dr. Sandler on the spot said, well, we need to test this with more children.
At this point, Ellen and her doctor took their story to Sidney Feingold.
So, Julie, you got some black colonies there?
Yes, he's grown nicely actually. He's right here.
And he agreed to help with a pilot study of 11 more children.
And how long did they take to show up?
That took 2 weeks to come up.
2 weeks.
Pigmentation, yeah.
I've always felt that bacteria in the gut do things other than cause infections of the classic type. There was never evidence for it, and here was an opportunity where, even based on that one initial patient, Ellen Boldy's son, it seemed very logical that bacteria in the gut played an important role.
Sure enough, Dr. Feingold found higher amounts of Clostridia in the stools of the test children, and that 80% of them improved on the antibiotic vancomycin. But there was a catch. In a hostile environment, Clostridia produced spores, essentially going into hibernation.
Actually, spores are resistant to all known antibiotics. There isn't an antibiotic that I'm aware of that can kill a spore. Now, I was very concerned that even though we had treated the bacterial cells, I knew that spores remained. And I was quite concerned that when we removed the vancomycin, that any spores remaining in the intestinal tract would germinate and would be right back in business, shall we say. And that, sadly, is exactly what happened. So, you know, there was a lot of very important skills that Andrew was able to maintain, but the behavior, the screaming, the irritability, the don't touch me, I don't want to look at you, the walking on his toes again, repetitive behaviors, those pretty much all came back.
Ellen co-authored a paper with several doctors on the results of the study, and in 2000, it was published in the Journal of Child Neurology. The paper didn't cause the stir in the medical community its authors expected.
I think we're going to have to do quite a bit more to convince people that are not infectious disease trained or trained in microbiology that bacteria can really do these kinds of things and that they can be controlled.
The medical community may also have ignored the paper because it was thought to be promoting wider use of vancomycin, which is a drug of last resort in the fight against antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Ellen believes that there were other issues at play as well.
When the results of that study were released, it seems like what everybody focused on was the fact that the children regressed. And I acknowledge the children regressed, but that is not the point. Why did that happen? Why did they get better? Could it be a neurotoxin producing bacteria in the gut that was suppressed by antibiotic treatment? I think that that's a valid question, and I think it's a question that has not been answered in 11 years since we published that paper.
That question is about to be reopened by a group of Canadian researchers who stumbled upon a new bacterial connection. Dr. Derek McFabe is the director of the Keeley-Patchell-Evans Autism Research Group. At his lab at the University of Western Ontario, Dr. McFabe is trying to link autism with gut bacteria.
I was aware of the paper by Dr. Sidney Feingold in UCLA showing unique populations of Clostridial bacteria in the digestive tracts of these children with regressive autism. And then in my previous work, we were working with this compound, propionic acid, and we found that for such a simple molecule, it had very widespread effects in the central nervous system, affecting brain development, metabolism, and immune function. And then, you know, we sort of put 2 and 2 together, and we said, hey, these bacteria in the gut, when children eat carbs, ferment the carbs and make propionic acid. And in addition, some of the foods that these children craved, in addition to being high carb, did in fact contain propionic acid as a food preservative. So we thought to take propionic acid and give it in small amounts to rodents and see if the behaviors or brain changes looked anything like autism and whether or not these behavioral and brain changes were transient.
Dr. McFabe's control subjects exhibit typical behavior. Rats are highly social animals. They greet by sniffing nose to tail and interact as they explore their surroundings. But when a propionic acid solution is introduced, this all changes.
What we noticed remarkably within 2 minutes of putting this propionic acid in, this animal immediately starts exhibiting some very peculiar behaviors. Obviously, he's hyperactive and moving very quickly, and then repetitive behaviors. Here you see an abnormal posture of walking with a hunchback. And it's an unappreciated part of autism in that patients often have toe walking, abnormal posturing, arched back. So now we'll place another animal that's been given propionic acid. And a peculiar thing happens. They show none of the normal social greetings of two rodents seeing each other.
A video tracking system records and compares the obsessive and antisocial PPA-treated rats with the normal rats. Other experiments showed responses such as rigidity and object fixation. and the intriguing fact that the effects of PPA wear off.
So now we're about a half an hour after we've exposed these two animals to propionic acids, and their behavior afterwards reverts back to normal. And it's a fat, so it's burned through metabolism. The animals become more social. Usually after their escapades, they tend to just go back to sleep. So again, we have a reversibility of hyperactivity and a reversibility of social behavior.
The autistic-like behavior of PPA-treated rats was compelling. But Dr. McFabe and his team wanted to know exactly what PPA was doing to the brain.
Hey, Roy, what do we have here?
Well, here are the most recent brains, the ones that we put through 2 days ago.
So we're going to be checking these for the neuroinflammatory markers?
That's right, yeah.
Imagine these gut bacteria produce the propionic acid as a metabolite. It'll fly through all bloodstreams to multiple cells, like all the other fats. But then when it comes to the nervous system, it can get in because it's a small molecule. But there are actually very specific compounds called transporters that actually grab the propionic acid and kind of suck it into the nervous system.
Once in the brain, PPA changes brain fat composition to be similar to that of autistic patients. The brain is 60% fat, and cell function and our behavior are directly related to how those fats are composed. And there's more. PPA could even be switching the genes associated with autism on and off.
Imagine this little molecule from your gut going directly into the nucleus where all your DNA is and acting as a switch to turn on and off important genes having to do with brain development, learning, and memory and metabolism. It's very intriguing that such a simple molecule can do such specific things in a brain metabolism and function that are very consistent with found in autism. Normal or near normal people exposed to high levels of alcohol are not behaving as their normal selves. And by analogy, I think normal or near normal children exposed to high levels of propionic acid, gut bug metabolites, are not themselves. By removing the propionic acid, by either getting rid of the bug that makes it, not feeding the bugs that are there, healing the gut, or using compounds that help break it down, that will be the approach of treating this disease.
So is it possible that gut bacteria research might give us new treatments for autism?
Yes?
Oh, pop, pop.
Oh no.
It's painful, to be honest.
Get them bubbles.
It's painful to watch it because we were so close. I really think that we were so close a decade ago to fixing this, but no one would listen.
Many parents of autistic children have established their own treatments.
Andrew is now 19 years old. It's hard to believe that it's been that many years. I do think that it's a war in Andrew's intestinal tract. There is a colony of, I believe, neurotoxin-producing bacteria that established itself and set up camp and set it up good and strong and at an early age. And basically what you become colonized with as a child, those are the bacteria you die with.
Ellen Bolte has found that by giving Andrew massive amounts of probiotics, supplements containing benign bacteria, his symptoms are controlled. The thinking is that even if his Clostridia can't be eradicated, they can be beaten back with waves of competing bacteria.
He functions very well, and that's a relative term. When I compare us to our baseline, I'm very happy with what he can do. Andrew is very self-sufficient. He can cook his own breakfast, pack his own lunch. Academically, he struggles beyond, a third or fourth grade level. He still has very impaired social skills. He is, though, delightful and a joy to be around the house.
Andrew, pretty soon you have to go to your track meet. And what are you going to do at your track meet?
Run fast.
Run fast.
Parents pushing the research and the scientists listening to them are attempting to find a unifying mechanism.
It is not the quest to show that propionic acid is the answer. That's vastly oversimplistic. Where I'm really hopeful is you have all these different camps looking at autism. Genetics, behavior, lipids, gut, bugs. Instead of arguing with each other, there may be something common to this that we can work together. Nobody's right or wrong. It's like the blind man and the elephant. We're looking at different parts of these things. And now, in our small way with a model, we have a way to test these things, validate what the patients are seeing, and, again, linking it to a gut bug.
And what's this?
5 minutes.
Yeah,
Cool down.
that's your cool down.
Opposite of exhausted is.
Opposite of exhausted is have energy.
Have energy means.
Can keep going. What's this up here?
Distance.
Yeah, that's how many miles you're running, huh?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you ran 345 miles, honey.
Okay.
But it looks good.
I cling to the hope that research is going to be done in time and that he'll be able to receive treatment and that he will be able to still respond due to plasticity of the brain. Who's to say? And I realize it's hypothetical, but hypothetically speaking, if he is being bombarded by a neurotoxin, if you stop that neurotoxin, he'll do nothing but get better.
Hope of improvement and even recovery is unshakable in other parents too.
They really have a GI issue. And when you have a gut problem, nothing else is gonna work. I would love to hear his voice. That's the most important things. He understands more now. He understands everything you tell him, but he can't say the words. So that's one of the biggest for me, to see, Alice speak and call me mom one day.
Laurie Mollum of Autism Canada says that a majority of parents report that their child improves when changes are made to their diet.
So why would what you eat affect your brain and your autistic symptoms? Well, the truth of the matter, it does. And because it does, we have to understand why it does, and that's why we need research in the gut brain, and that's why it's the most promising research that's going on out there.
Until fairly recently, we assumed that, or we just didn't really give the gut microbiota any thought whatsoever. And we just thought of it, we knew that the bugs were there, but we thought that they were just benignly there because they ate the waste products that we couldn't eat, and so why not? The finding that they're actually there and they're important and they're doing something that is contributing to health is a fairly new realization. We were really at the dawn of realizing that.
If you would just take 3 things that you learned this morning, just 3. I mean, think big for sure, go through your notes, but start small, but do small every day. That's the key to it, right? We've given you 40 or 50 things here that we can be done, areas that we're looking at that we can control through many different ways. Be really optimistic too about the gains we're making in this field, because we really are. And it's for people like yourselves that are really making that happen, okay? So this afternoon, I'm going to take you into looking at us, what we can do ourselves to grow and develop our emotional self-regulation and even enhance compassionate action, okay? So looking forward to being with you this afternoon, and we'll see you all at 1, okay? Thank you.